All right, Bulls Nation, it's time for another chat with our guy Legs on CHGO Bulls. Peck and Big Dave here, hanging out with the one and only Tim Legler, 3-point champ, NBA vet. Catch him on his broadcast all season long for NBA on ESPN, and tune in to that All-City, All-NBA podcast on the daily with our guy Adam Mares. Tim, welcome back. You ready to talk some Bulls, man?
Let's do it, man. How you guys feeling about this team, man? I'm really curious to hear. Hey, they're coming off a good win, though. They're coming off a nice win.
They are. You know, we're chatting with you here midday Friday. Between two games against the Cavs. They got the win at home against the Cavs. They got to play them again tonight in Cleveland. But as you just said, one of the Bulls' better wins of the season kind of reminded Bulls fans of the way that they were playing in that 5-0 start to the season, especially on the offensive end. They had their best shot profile of the season in the second half against the Cavs on Wednesday. 35 team assists on 50 made baskets. Everything was humming. When you see a Jekyll and Hyde team like this have a game where they execute across the board like that, other than the trope of it's a make or miss league, what small details are you looking at to see how is it that this is the same team that is losing to the dregs of the league over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, and first I want to start because I'm glad you used that phrase because I'm one of those guys over the course of the last 10 years. This has become a popular phrase, and I always shoot it down. I don't buy make or miss league. I never have. To me, that implies that everybody's getting the same quality of shots every night, and that's just not the case. So, it's make or miss, but it's all dependent on what kind of shots you get. And when you play really good offense in this league, you get good shots, man. You're going to shoot a higher percentage over time. So this was one of those games that offensively they put it all together. And I know, look, they've been inconsistent here. Obviously, they had a hot start to the year. They've been inconsistent over the last several weeks. This is a great win for them. Now, Cleveland's got their own issues they're dealing with. A lot of people are kind of scratching their head about the Cavaliers right now because going into the year, it looked like the Knicks Cavs were kind of in a separate place and then a bunch of question marks about everybody else in the Eastern Conference. And the Knicks have answered that call. Detroit's been a nice surprise. But the Cavaliers, they're over 500, but relative to their expectations to being a 64-win team, they're in a little bit of disarray right now. So you didn't necessarily catch the Cleveland at their best, but that's okay. It's still a high-powered team, high-powered offensive team that can light you up. So this is a good quality win. And to answer your question, what it can do is potentially be the impetus now to kind of give you a confidence builder and your offense to operate that way against a team that was a contender a year ago. It can give you a little bit of momentum and an impetus going forward and feel a lot better about yourself. And let's see if that can trigger something for the Bulls because they've had 6 games they've lost in the last 3 weeks that were winnable games. 6. So that tells you something about end of games. It tells you on both ends of the floor. They're in those games. They've not been able to close the deal. And some nights their offense has let them down. Some nights their defense. In this one, neither end let them down. Their offense hummed at a high rate. They hold a very high scoring and high-powered team to 111 points. All good for the Bulls, at least coming off of their last win.
Tim, I've called Nikola Vucevic the most impactful player on this team when it comes to winning. But in that last game that you're talking about, I felt the most impactful player was Josh Giddey. And how he played his triple-double and the way he got his triple-double was truly, truly impactful to the team. When it comes to Josh Giddey, and I know you've shown your love for Josh, especially at the start of the season and before the season. When it comes to Josh Giddey, is he somebody you see the Bulls building around instead of being a guy who's a number 2 or a number 3 option?
No, honestly, if you're talking about legitimately contending, legitimately getting your team to a place, if you're not a title contender, at least, in that top 4 or 5 mix in the East where you're like a bona fide playoff team, I don't think that Josh Giddey necessarily as your number 1 is going to get you there. If Josh Giddey is your number 2, you're probably a pretty solid team. If he's your number 3, then you got a really good team. That's a team that can be in the top 4 in a conference if he's your 3rd best player. As your best player, no, because I think that there's a lack of explosive ability to his offensive game where those guys that are top of the food chain guys on teams that contend, those guys have an answer for anything in front of them. There's no physical matchup that bothers them. There's no scheme that bothers them. There's no hole in their game. You can't give them something, and that's a win for you because they've got an answer for everything. He's not on that level offensively. Where he is great is as a guy that can get you 20 on any given night, but with the ball movement, the rebounding for a big wing, those kind of things as a supplemental piece of winning, very, very important. If that's the thing that you got to drive every night to try to get it across the finish line, that's probably not going to be good enough. I really like his game. I admire his game. He makes other guys on the floor better, but he's got limitations on his offensive game against certain matchups, certain schemes. It's just not going to be enough if he's your best player.
Tim, we know that Billy Donovan is a coach who loves his guards, oftentimes trolling out 3, even 4-guard lineups. I also think that oftentimes in his Bulls tenure, he's just been working with the rosters he's been handed, and they have been guard-heavy rosters. But especially as the Bulls have gotten healthier over the last couple of weeks, including Zach Collins getting back after his wrist fracture, we have seen more double big lineups being used by Billy Donovan in their last few games, with Jalen Smith and Zach Collins playing on the floor together, backing up Vooch. Curious what you think about that and this overall trend at large of a lot of NBA teams using a lot more size out there these days.
Yeah, you're seeing it more and more around the league. Is going to force Billy's hand, I think, a lot of nights to have to do that because you're just far too susceptible with lack of rim protection and lack of rebounding to be able to keep you in games if you don't have the ability to match up with 2 bigs on opposing teams. There are a lot more teams having 2 big lineups on the floor for extended portions of the game than we saw, 3, 4, 5 years ago. When they was almost like you thought that big guy was being phased out of the league practically, except for the very top guys. Now you're seeing that trend reverse, and more teams have the additional size on there to help with the glass. It helps you match up against other teams that are employing 2 bigs. Even if one of those guys is a perimeter shooter, it's still you have to look out physically and see, okay, we've got enough size on the floor to match up with this team. So I think it's forced him to do it. And fortunately, with Vucevic, Jalen Smith, Zach Collins, like they've got enough guys that they can do that if they need to. And again, I think Billy Donovan is smart enough. He probably likes having the options to play either type of lineup. I don't know that he had the luxury to play multiple bigs in the past. I think he can do it now with guys that he trusts. And some nights you're not going to have a choice in this league because that's what you're looking at on the other side of the floor.
Tim, one big I want to talk about is Matas Buzelis. We've seen flashes from him for sure. This year, we know he definitely still needs to work on, his defense and things like that. But one thing I haven't seen him do, like at all this season, is take mid-range shots, like at all. It's been more drive to the bucket or shoot threes. That's been pretty much it. Do you feel like as a shooter, do you feel the mid-range shot is a bad shot in today's NBA?
I do not, particularly for wings with length. I think you have to have it. And one of the guys I would point to that's come into this league already demonstrating that as a long wing is Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg is a guy he's struggling with his 3-point shooting. And I think he's got some things mechanically that are going to make it difficult for him to ever be a great 3-point shooter. He can get to the rim. Obviously, he's very athletic. But the thing that he has really done, particularly down the stretch of games, and he did it again on Thursday night, he is really good at getting to his spots between 10 and 20 feet. And he's got not just pull-up jumpers. He can shoot like a sort of a push shot from 10, 12 feet. And you can get that shot off without having to be dependent on getting to the rim. But it's not a 3-point shot that's not comfortable for you right now. I think Buzelis is shooting like 31% on the year from the 3. I think he's 22% in the month of December. That's a win for the defense. Now, that doesn't mean don't ever take them, because you've got to extend your game. And if you can start to get comfortable, you're going to have to be guarded differently. It's important to add range. But right now, that's a win for the defense if he takes that shot. So he wants to get to the rim and transition and slash and dunk and finish at the rim. Well, that's not always easy to do, man, especially with 2 bigs on the court. There's more contests at the rim than there was 5 years ago. These shots are not clean, so they're more difficult finishes. that's where that 10, 12-foot shot comes into play. And for a wing that's got some bounce and got some length to him, that is an area that he absolutely has to work on, and he's got to add to his game. And Cooper Flagg would be a guy I'd be studying if I were him. Trying to, number one, improve my handle to the point that Cooper Flagg can handle the ball right now. And also some of these push shots, runners, and short pull-up jumpers that enable him to get a shot off in his comfort zone that's not highly contested at the rim. It's just an important area of the floor to be able to master.
My last one for you, Tim. We have now passed that December 15th marker on the NBA calendar where most of the league's contracts become tradable. Now we have this month and a half or so window leading up to that February trade deadline. And here the Bulls are in 10th in the East, where they've been basically for the last half decade. And a lot of Bulls fans wondering, does our front office have one eye on that trade deadline? They have 7 expiring contracts on their roster right now, headlined by names like Kobe White, who you know wants a big payday this summer, Vooch, the veteran, who's kind of wondering, why am I still here? Ayo Dosunmu, who has been a solid combo guard for them in the starting lineup, off the bench. 7 expiring contracts. If you are the Bulls front office and they stay in this middling, a few games under 500, maybe get to 500, as you get closer to that deadline, would you be facing the realistic, best option as far as the options in front of you of we got to start selling off some pieces here?
Yeah, I think they're going to be looking at that. I think in some ways the start to the year they had maybe forced them to recalibrate a little bit. You're thinking like, hey, maybe, we're better than we thought maybe coming into the season. And now, like, the reality is set back in a little bit, like, where really are you in the pecking order in the Eastern Conference? So I don't know that you're making any definitive decisions on the team now, particularly with Kobe White missed the beginning of the year. So you wanted to kind of see everybody at full strength. They're going to now take a time to evaluate here over the next 15 games or so, and it's going to tell them what you need to know. But the fact is, they've got some guys that could be attractive pieces because of the expiring contract component that could be a key rotational piece for a team to add now that needs more depth, needs more scoring, needs more size, whatever it may be. They've got some pieces that could be attractive because their contracts are attractive right now for teams that think that they can just go rent a piece, potentially try to get something done, and if not, you move on from that player. So I would think the next 15 games are going to determine all of that. I don't know that they've completely made up their mind because I don't think they're as maybe good as they were at the start of the year. I don't think that they're as bad as they were when they had that losing streak. They're somewhere in the middle, and that's what they're trying to figure out from a front office standpoint.
Tim, last one from me. You talked that losing streak you just mentioned. The Bulls went on 7-game losing streak. Can you talk about what kind of toll that kind of take? Because it felt like, obviously I don't play, but it felt like just looking at it, those guys on some nights just weren't there. The effort wasn't there. Like they felt checked out in those instances. As somebody that has been on a team, in Dallas that, went a whole month without losing a game. Without winning a game, I should say. What kind of toll does that take? What is that like dealing with all of that upon you?
7-game losing streak in the course of an 82-game season is something you can cope with. But this was, I think, took a heavier toll because these are games on paper going in that you're supposed to take care of, right? You got a New Orleans team you lose to really, really struggling with their years. Zion Williamson out with injuries, almost in rebuild mode, like what they're doing, playing a lot of young guys. You lose that game. Charlotte is a team that's typically a bottom feeder in this league. They've dealt with all their injuries. You lose that game. You lose to Brooklyn, who's a bottom feeder in this league. You lose to the Pacers, a 6-win team that doesn't have Tyrese Halliburton. And then New Orleans again. So you lose. These are the teams you're losing to. That takes a heavier toll. Sometimes you go through a stretch of the season where you're hitting murderer's row, where you face 5-6 teams that are like contending teams in a very short period of time. That's a little different than this. This takes 20. And by the way, it's not just the fact that you lose 7 games in a row. It's 12 out of 15. So you're talking really a month of predominantly losing games. I said 6 of those were winnable. You got to get some of those. And you've got to beat some of these teams that aren't playing for a whole lot this year for whatever reason can be tough. That's why getting a win, and now they've won 2 out of 3, and Charlotte's not an easy team to play when they're healthy because that's a high power. That team can put up numbers. But this Cleveland win could be something to make them feel a lot better about themselves and get them past that. Now, winning 2 out of 3, beating a team like Cleveland, that could kickstart something. You look at their schedule coming up. They got to go on the road. Cleveland again, back-to-back with Atlanta, Philly, Milwaukee, Minnesota. It's not the easiest schedule, but coming off the Cleveland game, you've got at least some momentum.
Bulls Nation, if you want more of that league-wide perspective on the NBA, make sure you're tuning in to ALLCITY's All-NBA podcast, where Legs is making regular appearances every week with our guy Adam Mars. And, of course, catch him on those broadcasts, NBA on ESPN, including Christmas night, Rockets-Lakers in L.A. Who you got in that one, Tim?
Oh man, no! I'm not predicting that game. I'm calling the game. So, I'm not trying to get these coaches mad at me before I get out there to interview them. I'm just glad it looks like right now we sit here. So each team I think has a game or two to play before we get there, but healthy coming in. So that's what has been hard for us to find this year with our crew. The games we've called, it feels like there's one or two all-stars that have been missing almost every one of those games. Right now you've got LeBron back playing. You've got Luka playing at a high level. Austin Reeves is out right now, but he might be back by then. And then the Houston Rockets, they've got KD, they got Şengün, they got Amin Thompson. Like that, these are two teams that are trying to figure out who can be the last team standing in the way of Oklahoma City. That's really what the West is about. Both of these teams on that short list. So there's a couple of heavyweights in this league. Star power. It's got everything, man. LA, it's got it all, and I'm glad I'm going to be sitting there courtside to call it.
Legs, as always, we appreciate the insights and the time. Safe travels throughout the holidays while you're on these calls. We know we will be enjoying them. Hope you enjoy them as well. We look forward to the next chat.
Same, guys. Talk to you soon.